Okay. So first, before we get started, how was both of your weeks? If you guys want to share anything, like something positive that happened over the last week, that you feel like sharing, or something notable, or something challenging.
Um, well, I mean, I briefly kind of shared it. I know I'm still behind in the reading, but I decided I'm okay with that instead
Totally.
of forcing myself to get caught up in reading. But, when we were talking about removing things that didn't fit in our priorities or in our time, and like I said, it kind of been on my heart. While I love the ministry that I was working part-time for, as other areas of my life are changing and growing, it just didn't really feel to fit, and it became more of a burden to try to figure out where I was going to put those. While it was only 10 hours a week, it was, where am I putting those 10 hours a week in? And they haven't really been getting those hours lately, and that was kind of also making me feel guilty. It's like, I'm getting paid, and while I'm not doing them any favor because I'm not really doing my job, because I'm not really putting in the hours. And while it's summertime in the school that I also have an office at, I
Mhm.
haven't really had time to go there. I mean, my schedule just hasn't allowed me to be there, and they would like me to be there more in, growing relationships. And it was part of one of the issues that I was having. And finally, while the founder is a good friend of mine, her and I were sitting down, and she was talking to me on how different things are changing within the ministry, and I kind of tried to lead to it. I felt like God really led into our conversation that we had, and then we both walked away from, there were things in her role that needed to change, and by me leaving, her had to pick up some of my responsibilities is actually kind of a good thing, because she needed to start writing down more things, and what I was doing was still so new, it was forcing her to go backwards. And now writing down things that she never wrote down, she just took for granted that this is what I do and I just know how to do it, but I don't really know how to tell people.
Mhm.
Ministry really needed her to do it, so this kind of forced her to come back into my role. But it allowed me to say, hey, I'm not necessarily done, but I just can't be in a paid position. I don't believe that there's another position here for me, but I'm still willing to help. And when I walked away from that meeting, I felt so much better, because I knew that I needed to take that off my plate, and I just couldn't
Awesome.
do it anymore.
That's awesome. It's like it's not no forever. It's like the season of life right now is not it's not good for you right now. So that's
Yeah.
awesome realization. And so and when was that? I can't remember because I know you told me about this one.
It was last week when I sat down with her.
So having made that decision a week later, you're still feeling really good about it. Then it sounds like.
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Yay. That's because that's tough, when you've got a lot going on. And I struggle with this too, where I'm like, okay, what's going to give? You really need to pray about it and think about it because it's a hard decision,
Hmm.
and then, but you have to really listen, when I say listen, it's just like listen to, when you pray and hear what your heart's telling you, and that it can be hard, but it sounds like you made a really good choice.
Yeah, I feel good
Because
about it.
you
And
are a busy mama.
it is financial situation too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a loss of income, but I had to realize that that money I can find that money somewhere else.
Yeah, your time is worth it. Your time is worth that money. You know, and that's where you weigh in is like, what will I be spending my time on instead of? And that sounds like it's really important time for you. So yeah, I hear you. Well, awesome. Yay, yay, yay. How about you, Jen? How anything notable for you? How was your week?
My week was good. I feel like at work I was able to like prioritize all of the things that I needed to do and get them done. sometimes I'm struggling to get all of the pieces done and into place. So that was like really awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was able to like watch my aides and see like how they talk to each other.
Mhm.
And so I'm still obviously got to work on that still more, but I am finding little nuances in there.
That's good. Just trying to like step back and listen to what their quote unquote love language is or whatever, just how they receive, because, you know, I can tell, and I know everyone can tell, you're really passionate about making a shift in your facility as far as the climate and what's the best way to get there. It's a tough one. So awesome. Yeah, it's going to take time. You know,
Right.
I hear about that at school all the time when, you know, we get a new principal and they want to shift a culture with one area or another. It's a constant theme. It's like, it's just going to take time, and we just need to be persistent, and we need to listen, and we need to hear others, but we also need to stay true to what we talked about last week with that integrity and like being able to stand up to what you believe in, but also it's a tough dance, you know, it's like a dance with other people, like being able to stick your ground, but also being able to honor other people. It's tricky.
Mm-hmm.
So how about you, Nicole? Wins, we're talking about wins or challenges over the last weekend, if you're willing to share, if there's anything you want to share.
Well, I watched that movie you told me about.
Oh,
So I feel like that was a win because I was interested and had to go after it to find it. So I guess I wanted to watch it enough that I
I put you on a
put
goose
forth
chase.
the effort.
I
Yeah,
have
pretty
it
much.
right here. The Shack. Did you guys see? Have any of you guys read The Shack or seen the movie? Yeah.
Both.
Told Nicole
Really
to watch it. The book is actually, the movie is pretty good, I think, but I'm reading the book and it allows you to go back and read a section. That part is really kind of helpful because I'm reading it right now. But you watched the whole movie, Nicole, right? Oops, I think she froze.
Yeah, you're freezing on my end.
Oh, am I? Okay. So you watched the whole movie, and did you end up renting it, or did you find it online? You just found it online?
Yeah, Megan found it online for me for
Awesome.
free. So I bookmarked it.
That's where kids are really helpful. I swear they're smarter, they're more tech savvy than we are. Well, good. I'm anxious to, you know, as more time unravels, what are some different, because I think there's a lot of nuggets in there that can be really important for you and how it unravels itself for you, you know, because every time I shouldn't say every time because this is the first time I read the book, but I've seen the movie, but I'm taking new things out of it this time that I'm reading it and rereading different sections. And gives you a different outlook on our sort of standard thought of who God is. You know, it really shakes it up for us because really at the end of the day, do we really know what God looks like or we have this standard image in our brain and it's probably completely inaccurate. We won't know. And what it all means, we don't have the capacity to understand that quite yet. So I really like that about the book because it really helps you challenge a lot of old thinking that we have and helps us rethink like all the questions we ask ourselves about why did this happen? Or why does this happen to good people? Or why is there bad in the world? Why is there evil in the world? Why does this keep happening to me? Or why does this keep happening to this person or whatever? So good. I'm glad that you listened to it and watched it. So we'll chat some more about that though, privately. Get some more. But good job. Okay, so I posted some questions in the group, just some thought-provoking questions. Now, even if you're not caught up, you know, or if you're not even reading the books, I know, Danielle, you're behind, Nicole's not reading it, that's okay. This week is about integrity and forgiveness. Totally two different areas, but two totally important areas. But what I wanted to talk about is how does the integrity, which, you know, basically is being able to do the right thing when the doors are closed, like no one knows that you're doing it, always doing the right thing. and forgiveness, being able to forgive yourself and forgive people in the past. You know, we all have, we probably all have one or two people in the past that we're just like, can't really have a hard time forgiving or letting go of. And how does that align with our overall goal of peace and alignment? You know, so it's kind of, I always want to keep those things in mind as we, you know, for example, reading through this book right now, keeping those things in mind. How does this weave into our, you know, purpose right now? So let's talk about forgiveness. Okay, so keeping in mind about forgiveness and how it aligns with our goal of peace and alignment. Do you have anyone, if you are willing to share, and you don't have to give a name or anything, is there anyone in your past that it's really been a roadblock for you to be able to move forward? Even if it's just one little thing, it's just always nagging at you. And how is that manifested for you in your life? And anything that you want to share. I know I have a few people in my past. I'll share. I had a friend when we moved to Chicago when I shouldn't say we, because Greg and I didn't get together until after I moved to Chicago, but I moved to Chicago with a really, really, really good friend. Lived in Chicago. And in that time period, I met Greg. And I started spending a lot of time with him. That didn't go over so well with her. And she responded very, very, very negatively to it. And long story, but she started doing some really passive aggressive type of behaviors that ultimately led to severing our friendship of 15 years. Like, we had been friends for a long time and we were really close. And so I ended up leaving our apartment. And anyway, it was really nasty. And it took me years to even get to the point of not wishing something bad on her. I had these really negative thoughts about her. And that really stunted me for a long period of time. And it took me I think time really helped me. But, and recognizing who is this hurting in the long run? It was hurting me that I was holding on to those feelings of resentment and anger. And it was keeping me from being able to move forward and make new friendships, and recognizing that wasn't a friendship I needed in my life. It was sad because it was someone I went out and, had fun with and went to college with and things like that. But, it took some realization for me. And so that was a big, it's kind of a turning point for me in moving forward with friendships. And now my goal is always someone that aligns with what I'm already doing in my life and my beliefs and my standards, and just kind of, it's made a big difference. So I think that relationship was actually ended up being really important for me, and recognizing what I really want as a friend and a person in my life, or not even a friend, just someone who's in my life, and so it allows me to focus on that. So that's my story. And I've had a couple others along the way like that. Nothing is major. That was a big one for me. But that made a big impact in my life, and trying as I move forward to be able to continue to think of each situation as either you win or you learn, not lose or feeling the anger and resentment. It's well, how am I going to learn from this situation? What can I do? What can I change differently? How can I move forward? So that's kind of how I'm moving forward with that. So does anyone have anything they want to share? If you don't, we'll move on to the next question.
I guess I have one slightly similar in a way. And I've just recently kind of found out information of why, but same thing, after 15 years of a friendship, I had my best friend literally walk away from our friendship and never tell me why. She was pregnant and started acting funny, and I'd even gotten her a job with the company that I worked for, and there was some disputes that had happened between her and I with work situations. That of course she, in her mind, took it as one way, and I don't, to this day, even though her mom finally, because her mom and I were super close also, like her mom not only was like my second mom, but was like also like another best friend. So I really lost two friends
Yeah.
in this situation. Um, but I mean, her baby was born. I found out from her mom in a group text when it finally happened because she had stopped speaking to me. And then I was trying to come over to the house, and her mom refused to let me come over, and then decided that she would allow me 30 minutes to come over to the house to see her and the baby, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
So I came, and it was very awkward, and I got my 30 minutes and left, and that was like literally about the last time I ever saw her. If I would ever run into her in public, she would make a point, especially like as in a restaurant or something, of walking the farthest away from me as she possibly can, acting like I don't exist. We had a lot of the same friends, and she would come into a situation and speak to everybody but me, and her mom was kind of that way. And it wasn't finally until her mom and I were on a vacation together with other mutual friends that her mom finally told me, she's like, do you really want to know what happened? I'm like, well, I've been trying to figure out for about 10 years why after 15 years your daughter just decided no. And she started sharing stuff with me about supposedly different things that I said or different ways that I treated her, and I'm like, okay, I mean, I can only listen to what you have to say. I can't change any of that. But another thing that was just hurtful is like her dad passed away, and out of respect to her, I actually chose not to go to the funeral or anything. But after all of this went down, I mean, her dad and I still would go to church together. I would sit with her dad at church on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
And that was awkward. It's like, well, your daughter won't speak to me, but I attend church. So while it's given me a peace of mind a little bit, it hurts because there's nothing that I can do to change it, because she still does not want to speak to me or have anything to do with me.
Wow. So there's hurt,
Mm-hmm.
anger, resentment. Where are you at with that? Forgiveness, sadness. Where are you with all these emotions?
Sad. I've had plenty of time to work through a lot of the emotions. Not angry anymore. I would just say that more hurt and sad. Like, I haven't got to be a part of her son's life. When I got married, the one person that I wish was standing next to me was not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when you hit those milestones
Mm-hmm.
that you wish somebody was there.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm. So do you feel forgiveness? Do you feel like, sounds like it's been hard for you to move forward, but you have.
Yeah.
But there's a level of something unanswered.
Maybe still the unansweredness, because while her mom shared with me, I'd love if she would speak to me, and her mom's like, well, I'll go back and talk to her, and I'll let that be her decision on if she chooses to speak to you.
Yeah.
And that was back in February, and there's been nothing.
It's tough. It really is. It's like, you've done, like you said, things have been done in the past. That's happened. You've made different strides to kind of figure things out. And at that point, it's kind of like, what else can you do?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I'm at. Like, what else can I do? Like, I can't force her to talk to me.
You can't force her to talk to you. So at this point, it's working through the variety of emotions you might be feeling to be able to make sure that you're at peace with where you're at, which it seems like you are, but it's also kind of bothers you a little bit.
Yeah. It still hurts.
Yeah. So, and that's pretty natural, but yeah, that's tough. It sounds very similar to my situation, in fact, because she stopped talking to me and I was like, And then I found out later it had to do with Greg and me not going out with her as much as she wanted me to. And I'm like, you know, same kind of thing. But we actually, my ex-friend, we've kind of talked it through only online. We are now Facebook friends. But we've, you know, we're fine with each other now, and kind of, I feel like I've forgiven her in my mind, and hopefully she's forgiven, because I don't really know what I did wrong, but I think she's forgiven me for what I've done, or what she thinks I did, and I just have to kind of leave it at that. So, but forgiveness is a hard one, I think, in general, and it doesn't always have to be big situations. It can be small ones too, or things that we've done in the past that we feel bad about, you know, and we haven't forgiven ourselves for. So it's not always about someone else. It's about, you know, different things we may have done that we haven't let go of, and we might not even recognize those things. So let me ask you this. Is there ever a time where you feel like you're more prone to take care of someone else's emotional needs than your own spiritual or emotional needs? Does that come into play for you at any? And I know right now you guys have already all taken a good step in taking care of your emotional and spiritual needs, because we're doing this together. But at times, and as you reflect, are there times that you feel like that you do, you know, take care of someone else's emotional or spiritual needs as opposed to your own? And what does that look like? Nicole, you're nodding a little bit. You take care of yourself. You're doing really good there. But you take care of everyone else too.
Yeah. Yep. I'm trying to turn that around, and it's been hard.
It is hard. And I think, you know, one thing that can be hard, and maybe you picked it up in the movie, The Shack, is, you know, God wants us to do those things when our heart is there. We should never do anything out of obligation. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously there's right versus wrong, you know, like we got to make a right decision even if we don't feel like it, you know, like we got to pay a bill even if we don't feel like it, you know what I mean? But like, my point is like, we want to always make sure that we're not doing things out of obligation. And that's maybe where you can make a cutoff for yourself, is like, is this obligation, or is this, you know, something that I really feel that is important for me to do for somebody. And I think you do have a really great heart. So I'm not trying to insinuate that you're doing everything out of obligation, but that might help you decipher between the two a little bit. You know, think of, is this something I really want to do, or is this something that I just feel like is the right thing to do and I should just do it because that's what people should do, you know? It's just something to kind of, you know, Leah talks about the should word, right? Because you're in her, shoulding yourself, she calls it. Leah Newman, you guys know Leah Newman, right?
Yep.
She's like, don't should yourself to death. She tells me that. You shouldn't have to do anything.
I'm a good shudder.
What's that?
I'm a good shudder.
I am too. I should. I'm trying to not even use that word anymore. It now gives me like, you know, I don't know. I think about it now. Every time I say it, I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to say that word. But anyway, but I think being more in tune with when we really feel like compelled to do something, as opposed to, I don't need to do this, you know? And even in Danielle, in your situation and your little part-time job, you know, it was a great you know, you're helping, doing service for others, but it was causing more, it was more difficult for you and your family than it was helping someone else. So you kind of have to weigh that. What is important? And we always have to keep ourselves and our families at the number one, no matter what. I think, my opinion, you know, because otherwise we're not doing any service for anybody. So that could be tricky. Anyone else feel like that resonates with them a little bit?
Daily.
Yeah. It's daily for me too. That's a constant I think really the thing is for us as women to be more conscious of it. I think, and I'm completely generalizing, but many women, and I know all of us are included in this, we feel an obligation and a duty to do certain things because that's what we do, because we want to take care of people and we want to make sure everyone's happy and we want to make sure everyone in our life is good. And sometimes we do it at our own expense. And I think all four of us are doing a much better job of keep putting ourselves in that level as well. Like we need to keep ourselves in that lineup as well as the people that need to be taken care of. But I think that's a struggle for a lot of women and men too. I'm just saying women because this is a women's group, but it can be really hard. And I think the biggest part is just being more conscious of it. And especially when we have busy days and busy lives, we just go through our day and, okay, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. But being conscious of when we're doing those different activities, intentional, and when we're doing those different things. And I know, Jennifer, you've been really working on that at work and stuff, and you've done a great job at doing that. And just like intentionally doing various activities with purpose. What is the purpose behind this? And that will help us make, decisions that, what is this area that can be cut down? And what is this area that can be lifted up? And vice versa. And when do I need more self-care right now? And, probably this thing can go down a little bit. Helps us make those kind of individualized decisions. Okay. So if you could think of one thing this week that you could do that will allow you to give yourself more grace or grace for someone else, and that will allow you to live more intentionally, what would that look like in your life? So thinking about grace and intention, giving yourself grace, whether it's grace with, saying no to a situation, or maybe saying yes to something you felt guilty about doing, or maybe it's forgiving someone that you've been struggling with, or forgiving something in the past. What is one thing that you feel like one small thing that you could do this week to move yourself in that direction of being a little bit more intentional with those little decisions to give yourself a little bit more grace, forgiveness, any of those areas?
I think might be for me just this week. Not feeling bad if I need to go to bed a little earlier than normal.
Mm-hmm.
Just, sometimes I'm like, oh, I should probably do something. Something should get done, but it's still going to be there tomorrow, and I should do it tomorrow. So
when you start noticing that should word, then you're like, oh shoot, I'm about to say it.
Yeah. So just like realizing like it's okay to relax for a little bit. Not everything has to be done right now.
I mean, let's just take a minute here. I want you to do a mental inventory of all the things you did today. Like, seriously, take a minute. Because I guarantee you, all three of you did a massive amount of super amazing crap. And we don't take the time to recognize that, because even to the moment when we're in bed, and I am certain that you guys all have, maybe not every night, but there's moments when you're like, oh, I wish I would have gotten to that. Or I have this to do tomorrow, and you're already thinking about tomorrow, and you're not even recognizing how amazing you were during the day, whether it's juggling kids, or maybe it's making a difficult decision with your child, or maybe it's working through something at work, trying to take the time for yourself in the day. Maybe it's reading your Bible. Maybe it's, spending some quality time with your partner. Maybe whatever it is, like those are all incredibly amazing things. And I think it's so important that we all recognize the things that we do. I know I've spoken about it. Maybe I spoke about it last week, or maybe I did it in a post, but do any of you guys do gratitude journals or anything where you actually sit down and like, oh yeah, I did that, or oh, wow, I'm pretty amazing, at XYZ, or I made a pretty fabulous dinner tonight, or whatever it was. Do any of you guys take the time to do a gratitude of some sort at the end of the day?
Don't write it down. I'm really bad about writing stuff down or even journaling. But I guess as I'm trying to be more conscious of things, I start noticing myself, or, kind of like my word for this year was joy, or choosing joy. So I really try to look at even the small things, in the day. So that's where I've been trying to become a little more conscious of things like that.
Which I think is fantastic. I don't think we always have to journal.
But
That's good. Consciously making a decision at some point, being able to recognize something that you've done positively. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked about kind of some small resolutions, and I spoke about it last week. And I touched base with Andrea, because one of her resolutions, she's been traveling over the last week, which is the reason why she hasn't been on the call, but her resolution was to have her children start doing like a gratitude jar. And so I asked her yesterday, because we talked about our sons are best friends, and so we talk all the time. And I was like, so how's that going? And she said that the kids love it. And granted, this is for her kids' benefit, because they're going to, hopefully, she's creating a, a framework for her kids to be able to recognize the things that they do well during the day, and just like a gratitude. What are they grateful for that they've done today, or something that someone has done for them? But she said she has been doing it. She has a little jar, and they do it every morning, where all three of her kids will, think of one thing that they're grateful for. And so how great would that be is if we took that time, even when we're eating breakfast, just to think of one thing. We don't have to write it down. Like you said, Danielle, you don't have to write it down, but just even think about it. It can change how you look at things. Because
I try to do that for my staff. I try to do that for my staff at least several times a week. At least a couple of things to say thank you, I appreciate what you did, or thanks for helping me out when.
You write that to other staff?
No, I tell them verbally before they leave for the end of the day.
That's awesome.
I've got 8 staff.
That is awesome. So you do it for other people?
Yeah.
And
I try to, because I really do appreciate it.
That's awesome. I mean, I hope that you recognize the things that you do too, even if no one else is saying those things to you,
Yeah.
And the funny thing is I'm certain if any three of you asked an important person in your life, like, what do you appreciate about me? Some things you probably would think, oh yeah, I do that. Okay, yeah. There's probably going to be some things that would surprise you. Have you ever done that exercise where you ask someone, I think it might be in the book, where it gives you a little question about, was there a chapter in the book? I'll have to look back. I feel like it was one of the early chapters. It has you ask a significant.
I remember creating a post around that one because I liked that.
Yes. Yes, I did. See, my brain, we've been crazy busy around here, baseball life, I swear to God. Anyway, so thinking about what other people would say about you is pretty interesting. And I do this with students sometimes where, and many students have done this activity now, over the years, but whenever I do it for the first time with students, where if I'm in a group of students, and I'll have them each have a sheet of paper, and they have to write, and they pass it around, and on that person's name, they have to think of something that they appreciate that person for. And at the end, the kids will have like 10 or 12 positive things said about them. And they're like, you think that about me? That you really think, sometimes they're like shocked. Whereas the other person's like, yeah, you do that all the time, or whatever. And so even though it's kind of a juvenile sort of activity, but it's something that can impact us so much in recognizing when we have these conversations with our significant others, like, what do you think about? What do you think about this? Or, getting that feedback from someone important in your life. And I bet you we would get some important, some interesting comments back. So anyway, something to consider. All right, so I have a couple more. So as far as integrity, we all know what integrity is. And we've talked about it a little bit last week as far as standing into our principles. And Jennifer, we talked a lot about some of the things that you struggle at work. But I think as people in our society, we all have obstacles in our way that keep us from getting to that place where we want to be as far as people of integrity and people of, feeling good about what we're doing with different aspects of our day. So what are some different obstacles that any of you struggle with that keep you from getting to where you need to be or want to be in regards to integrity? For me, tiredness. Fatigue gets in my way sometimes of wanting to do, different special things with my kids sometimes that I really want to do, feel compelled to do and spend time with them and, doing various God-related activities, which I do, but I don't do it as frequently as I'd like to. And my fatigue gets in my way. So that makes me think about, okay, what do I need to do about my fatigue? And I think I revealed some information last week about how sometimes I take on too much. And so I've been really praying about that this week. Like, I need to let go of some things so that it doesn't compromise the things that really matter to me. So that is an obstacle for me. So that's an example of an obstacle. And that's been something that I've been really trying to figure out, especially before school starts in about 6 weeks.
Is that all?
Yes. It's coming soon. And I'm like, I feel like summer hasn't started because we've been so busy, but anyway. So that's my obstacle. Do any of you guys have an obstacle that you feel like you're struggling with or want to share about?
I don't know if it's an integrity thing, but I've been continuously having low-lying depression that makes me not feel like wanting to do anything.
That's definitely an obstacle. Absolutely. That counts. It keeps
I
you
just don't give a flying
that are important to you. Mm-hmm. And I know some of the steps that you needed to take was going back to your doctor, right? And
yeah.
Did you go back yet?
I'm not sure what you're saying because it keeps freezing.
It keeps freezing. I'm sorry. Did you?
I got a whole bunch of doctor's appointments.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Here, and I've been going.
So you've got the ball rolling from that perspective. So yeah. I think that's going to be really important. We've talked about that before. No, that completely aligns with what I'm talking about. It's an obstacle for you. Absolutely. It keeps you from being the person you want to be at times. Probably not all the time, but feeling who you are, feeling true to yourself, feeling fully alive, feeling, all the things.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect example. And that is a big obstacle to get over. And medication can be a big helper. I'm on medication. I don't hide it. And if I don't take it, I notice the difference. So, I'm a big proponent of that. And you're doing lots of
I wonder if that's part of it. I wonder if that's part of the problem because I've had a different generic every month for quite a while now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's definitely something to explore for sure. So, and you're doing a lot of other things. You are the queen of self-care.
This whole thing keeps cutting in and out, so I'm only hearing about half the conversation.
I'm sorry. We're hearing you for the most part. You only froze out a couple of times.
Okay.
But you're really.
I'll have to go back and rewatch some of it.
Yeah, that's okay. But you're really good about self-care, which is really good, and that's a good step. And I think consistency is key. And I think the other key with and I don't have the solution to happiness or getting through depression, because we're doing a series of different things that help with that. But sometimes it's just recognizing that connection with others is important. And obviously, if there's a medical piece to it, which you do and I do too, we got to make sure that we're aligned with that and taking care of ourselves, our emotional and spiritual selves. I think those are, for me, I don't know if you guys have any other factors that you feel like are important, but those are my top 3 things that are important for me. Connection, taking care of my medical piece, and self-care. And you've been doing a really good job with that. And unfortunately, there's not a turnkey solution to it, which sucks, right?
Very much.
But you'll get there, and you've come so far. And I think it's so important to, always recognize how far we've all come in different areas, because sometimes we don't feel how far we've come until you look far back and like, whoa, I am a different person, So how about you, Jennifer, Danielle, any obstacles that have been getting in your way, and how have you overcome it, or have you overcome it?
Life.
Things?
I used to be a lot better with self-care. I'm trying to get back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is now that I finally hopefully have a staff to help cover things, I'm not as responsible, and I need to realize some days that I'm just going to step back and let everybody else do it, and I'm going to take some time for me. I'm going to work on maybe something else that I've wanted to work on, or spend some time with my family. So trying to put pieces back in that got put on the back burner, and one of them was taking care of myself.
Okay. So what are some steps that you've started to take in that regard?
What was that?
What are some steps, or what's your thought pattern and how you're going to achieve that?
One of them is to take as much work off my plate as I can, knowing at least for this short term, I have enough people that can help cover it, and it allows me to just find me again. Because I feel like it's lost in the last few months.
It gets lost when we get super busy. It does, because you're just doing. So delegating. So that's kind of the step you're taking, is looking at things and delegating and being intentional with what is needed for you and what other people can take care of. Is that kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fabulous. So you're in the process. So you're still kind of sorting through that. That's a really great step. And the other step you took was letting go of that other part-time job you had going on.
Yep.
And part of it also is learning how to be not busy again.
Mm-hmm. It's weird.
I think you and I have some similarities there. It's hard for us not to be busy. Like, I have a hard time when I'm not busy. Like, okay, all right, so I don't have anything going on. What do I do? That's a struggle of mine. So that tells me that it's important to do. So awesome. All right, Jennifer, well, how about you? So you've made some steps at work, stepping back a little bit, listening, watching, seeing, but sticking strong to your, what your purpose is at work. And moving forward with that, where do you think you need to go? What's the trajectory with that? Or maybe it's staying your ground right now. I don't know. Maybe it's sticking with what you're doing and kind of evaluating on a day-to-day basis.
I think, continue to watch people, just see, like you said, like what's their love language, and like really try to find that, just kind of speak to that a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And then maybe fill their cup a little bit, and then maybe they won't feel so attacked all the time. Yes, I don't know.
No, seriously, you have to think about what the end goal is, and what's the fastest way to get to that end goal. without compromising who you are. And that's
Right.
the tricky part. You don't want to compromise who you are. We've talked about this. Like, you know, part of your personality is to be straightforward and upfront. And that's a great trait. Some people don't accept that as well as you'd like them to be, because it's kind of like, well, I would like people to be that way to be, you know, but I'm, you know, just the way people are a little bit different.
I just automatically assume everyone's straightforward with me.
Wouldn't that be great? I would love that, but it's just not the case, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right. It's not. I just assume though.
I know. Well, hey, that's a good thing to, it's a good thing to assume the best of people, right?
Yes.
It is. So it's a weird dance, not changing who you are, but also recognizing, oh, they're a little bit different in how they hear me or receive me. So how are we going to approach this differently? So, oh, you're inside, Danielle. You've relocated.
That cold.
Anyway, sorry, Jennifer. So, so you're there with that, and it sounds like you kind of have to stick, you know, kind of stay on that pattern. Any struggles over the last week?
I would say here at home, I just find like I'd like to do more like at home with my kids, like outside of like our Bible study in the evening, like playing a game or just like interacting with them. But after work, I'm so peopled out.
I know. I'm right with you.
So peoply out there. And like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I think my cat, go to my bed, do nothing. But like, I know I need to, obviously, I like them. So I need to show them I like them, you know? So, you know, I think, and one time you talked about like transition, like
Yes.
from work day to then home life. And I think I really just need to work on that little bit of transition time and like figuring out how to get from work nurse manager role to the fun mom that I know I am.
Right. How to transition that and to let go of, you know, things that may have happened during the day.
Right.
It is a hard thing, but that transition time I think is undervalued, or people don't think about it. They just think, oh, it's hard, you know, but it's something to intentionally think about, you know, and how is that going to look? And like I said, for me, I'm obviously not working right now, but on my way, when I do get home from work, changing out of my clothes, for me, it's just something that works for me. So it's kind of like trying some different things. Doesn't always work. It's not a perfect science, but it helps me switch off. And then it gives me that 10 minutes to be like, okay, work is done till tomorrow. I am just going to go downstairs and hang with the kids before whatever night activities we had going on. Again, not a perfect science, because some days I just wanted to stay upstairs, and I did. And I just told my husband, listen, it's one of those days, I'm going to stay up here. And he had those days too, where he was like, I got to go upstairs for a little bit, you know. And you have a great husband who, you know, I don't know if he's home when you're home, but you guys have a great relationship where you can kind of probably talk about those things. But yeah, I hear you. That's tough. But, you know, the fact that you're recognizing it, you know, and it doesn't, for kids too, it's not the quantity of time. And you know that, don't underestimate your Bible study time with them. That's significant. You're spending quality time with them at that time. So don't downplay that. That's phenomenal. So, you know, even if it's 20 minutes, my gosh, and you spend time with your kids, those kids, it matters, you know. So recognize that, even if your transition time is like, I need an hour to myself when I get home, or the kids are often playing or doing homework for a while you are decompressing, having a cup of coffee or whatever you do, like, be cool with it. It's totally okay. You know, it's part of that grace that I was just talking about earlier. Like, we're not perfect, and we're not going to be perfect, and our kids don't expect us to be perfect, because our kids are totally fine with who we are.
Right.
They really are. I mean, when I think back when I was a kid, now I can see my faults in my parents as an adult, but as a kid, I thought that what they did was wonderful. Like, and they did the best, because they did do the best they could, and we're doing the best we can, you know. If we weren't doing the best we could, that'd be a different story, but we all four of us are. So cut yourself a little bit of slack is what I'm trying to tell you. I bet you're pretty phenomenal.
Well, we played a game, like we played cards last week, and it was so much fun. I did have to tell them to be quiet because they were being really loud in my ear, and noise bothers me. But like, it was just like a fun time, and
Yeah.
like, I remember that as a kid, like camping, we would do all the games, and the kids like to do that. But sometimes I'm just like, because then someone inevitably starts cheating, and it just irritates me.
I am the same way. My kids start then doing goofy stuff and
Make up rules that don't even apply.
Yeah. I'm a rule follower too, and so yeah, I hear you. And so, but it's like tapping into the kid part of yourself where you let it go and try to have fun, and intentionally say, I'm going to go into this game with, just having a good time. I'm like that with the pool. The kids swim, and I sit by the pool. They're like, why don't you come in and play? And I'll go in the pool, but I just like to cool off and get back out. And then when I do end up taking the intentional time, I'm going to play with them, they talk about it for like a week. They're like, Mom, we had so much, they think it's the coolest thing. I was in there for like 20 minutes, so it was significant, and it didn't have to be like a massive amount of time, it's just a little bit of time, and it meant a lot. So I think sometimes if we just take those little bits and pieces of time and just take everything out of our brain and it's just them, not multitask when we're with our kids, and maybe it's a half hour, whatever, maybe it's longer, maybe it's shorter, whatever it is, it's that it's for them. They recognize it. That time doesn't matter to them. I don't think it does. But again, you do that Bible study with them, that they will remember that forever. So that's really awesome. So, all right, ladies. So, any other resolutions you want to make for this week for the good of the order? Something that you want to keep working on? I know, Danielle, you talked about you're sorting through delegating a little bit more to kind of create some space for you to figure some stuff out. I know, Nicole, you just recently watched that movie, which you're kind of sorting through some things in there. Jennifer, you're working through some stuff at work, and you're trying to create some more space at home, like emotional space to be able to relax and let go with your kids. Is there anything else that you really want to focus your attention on, so that sometimes it's good to put it out there in the world so that it makes it more real, and that we also all know about it. So it kind of makes you feel a little bit more compelled to do it. If there's anything else you want to share. Otherwise, I think you ladies are doing awesome. I think you guys are all phenomenal, and I think you're doing a great job in all that you do. So we'll keep doing it. Keep doing you. All right. Well, it's almost 9 o'clock, so I'm going to let you ladies go. Thanks for hopping on tonight. It was nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for hopping on. I will see you all later in the group then.
Okay.
All right, bye. Have a good night.
Bye.